When we clear away the dust of history, we find the names of certain rulers who, in their arrogance of power, turned the earth into a living hell. Among them, the name of Pharaoh stands at the very top. But did you know that behind Pharaoh's vast empire, his sky-high buildings, and the brutal torture inflicted upon the children of Israel, there was another man pulling the strings? If Pharaoh was the brain, then this individual was the hands and feet of that brain. History knows him by the name Haman. For thousands of years, people thought Haman was just a name. But the Holy Quran gave information about Haman 1400 years ago that modern science and Egyptologists have only discovered a few decades ago. Who was this Haman? What was his real job in Pharaoh's court? Why has Allah Ta'ala mentioned Haman's name repeatedly alongside Pharaoh in the Holy Quran? Today, we will uncover the unknown history of Pharaoh's minister Haman, a history that will give you goosebumps. Before we get into the main discussion, I request you to subscribe to the channel and stay with us. Pharaoh's royal court was a massive factory of oppression and disbelief. On one side, there was immense wealth, and on the other, extreme rebellion against God. Pharaoh claimed himself to be the Rob, or Lord. But the main architect or designer behind the structural power that supported this claim was Haman. In the Holy Quran, Haman's name is mentioned with great importance alongside Qarun and Pharaoh. Allah the Almighty says in Surah Al-Ankabut, verse 39, "And I destroyed Qarun, Pharaoh, and Haman. Musa alayhi salam came to them with clear signs, but they were arrogant on the earth. Yet they could not outrun my punishment." Here it is important to note that Allah Ta'ala did not mention Haman as a simple minister, but identified him as a criminal equal to Pharaoh. This is because the responsibility of implementing every heinous order of Pharaoh was on Haman's shoulders.
I am the Rob, your Lord.
When Pharaoh claimed to be Lord, he needed to build massive, magnificent palaces and statues to force common people to believe him. The mastermind behind this construction was Haman. The design of the inhumane torture that Pharaoh inflicted upon the children of Israel was created by this Haman. He was Pharaoh's blind follower and the biggest supporter of his lies. The arrogance of Pharaoh's reign survived on Haman's architectural skills and cruel administrative power. Basically, Haman was the person who turned Pharaoh's words into reality. If Pharaoh was the order giver of oppression, Haman was the implementer of that oppression. And for this reason, the scale of their sins and the height of their arrogance were equal, leading them toward an unbelievable plan. When Pharaoh's arrogance reached the sky, he made a strange and crazy plan to mock the invitation of Prophet Musa alayhi salam. He wanted to physically go and challenge the owner of the heavens, and the responsibility for this impossible project was given to his most trusted and skilled engineer, Haman. In Surah Al-Qasas, verse 38 of the Holy Quran, Allah Ta'ala highlights that historical conversation, which is a huge wonder for modern science. Pharaoh said to his courtiers, "O chiefs, I know of no God for you other than myself." Then he turned to Haman and gave a strange order. He said, "O Haman, kindle a fire for me upon the clay to make bricks, and build for me a lofty tower, so that I may look at the God of Musa alayhi salam, although I think he is one of the liars." This verse is not a simple description, rather it unveils a deep historical truth. This verse of the Quran, revealed 1400 years ago, has astonished modern archaeologists. This is because the pyramids or large structures of ancient Egypt were usually built by cutting large stones. The use of baked bricks was very rare there. But modern researchers, studying ancient Egyptian architecture, were surprised to notice that when Pharaoh told Haman to build a high tower, he did not order the use of stone, but rather told him to burn bricks. That is, he ordered the making of solid bricks by burning clay in fire. Because on the banks of the Nile, sun-dried mud bricks were used for ordinary houses, but whenever there was a need to build a very high structure or a narrow tower, ancient Egyptians used bricks baked in fire kilns using special technology. Due to the massive weight of stones, there is a risk of a very high tower collapsing, but it is possible to go much higher with baked brick masonry, and it is much stronger, which matches exactly with the description in the Quran. By mentioning Haman and burning bricks together in the Holy Quran, Allah the Almighty has proven that this book is not written by any human, but rather He is that being who knows every particle of history. Was it possible for an illiterate prophet sitting in the desert to know that ancient Egyptian engineers used baked bricks to build high buildings? Never. Haman started the work of constructing that tower at the command of his master Pharaoh. Thousands of laborers and the blood and sweat of the enslaved children of Israel were combined to try and build that towering structure. Haman was that tool of Pharaoh who gave shape to Pharaoh's words. If Pharaoh was the brain of oppression, Haman was the hand of that oppression. Through this failed attempt to touch the sky, they were basically accelerating their own destruction. But they did not know that a conspiracy would be made to wipe their secret names from the pages of history thousands of years later, and that the truth would rise again. For century after century, Western Orientalists and followers of the Bible raised various questions about this Haman character in the Quran. Their long-standing claim was that Muhammad ﷺ made a mistake in historical facts and placed a biblical character in the wrong place. This is because in the Old Testament of the Bible, in the book of Esther, a minister named Haman is mentioned, but there he is shown as a minister of the king of Persia or Iran. So critics used to say that there was no existence of anyone named Haman during the time of the Egyptian pharaoh, claiming it was just a fairy tale. But truth never remains buried under the soil. One day or another, it comes out like the light of the sun. In 1799, when Napoleon's soldiers discovered the Rosetta Stone in Egypt, and later when Jean-François Champollion was able to decipher the mysterious ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs, the silent stones of thousands of years began to speak. History took a turn, and an unbelievable truth was revealed. The famous French scientist and surgeon Dr. Maurice Bucaille started deep research on this name, Haman. To solve the mystery of this name, he went to a famous Egyptologist and asked him to look for the word Haman in the ancient Egyptian dictionary. Surprisingly, after searching through the documents of the New Kingdom of ancient Egypt, that exact name was found. On an ancient tablet or inscription preserved in the Museum of Vienna in Austria, Haman's name, or a name of his same lineage, was clearly engraved. And the title or identity of Haman written on that tablet made the researchers' eyes widen in shock. It was written there, "Head of the quarry workers," meaning the chief of stone and construction workers. That means this person was the chief supervisor of all construction works for Pharaoh. Just compare it once. What order did Pharaoh give to Haman in the Holy Quran? He said, "Kindle a fire for me upon the clay and build for me a lofty tower." And 20th century modern archaeology unequivocally proved that Haman was the person who was the chief of all construction workers and masons in Egypt at that time. The information that is not in the Bible, which was lost in the Torah, and which was not in any ordinary history book, the Quran has held that information in its heart for 1400 years. After this discovery, Dr. Maurice Bucaille was forced to admit that it was impossible for any human sitting in the desert to know these secret documents of ancient Egypt, unless it was revealed from Allah the Almighty. This historical authenticity of Haman proves that he was not just a character of folklore, but he was the pillar of Pharaoh's power, who used his intellect and architecture to block the path of truth. And this blind loyalty led him toward a final conflict. Haman was not just an architect or engineer, he was Pharaoh's cunning advisor and the main partner in sin. When Prophet Musa alayhi salam appeared in Pharaoh's court with clear signs or miracles, Pharaoh's royal court trembled. When the staff of Musa alayhi salam turned into a huge python and his hand shone with bright light, fear arose in the minds of the magicians and courtiers present. They had no logic left to deny the truth. But the lust for power makes people blind. Instead of accepting this truth, Pharaoh and Haman dismissed it as mere magic. To maintain his false godhood, Pharaoh used Haman to start a huge psychological game. He ordered Haman to complete that sky-high tower quickly, which was basically a trick to deceive the common people. The picture of this conspiracy is reflected in verses 36 and 37 of Surah Al-Mu'min, or Ghafir, in the Holy Quran. Pharaoh arrogantly said, "O Haman, build for me a high palace so that I may reach the ways of the heavens, and look at the God of Musa alayhi salam, although I consider him a liar." Haman knew that it is not possible to see the Creator by putting stairs to the sky or building a tower, and he also knew that Pharaoh was no god. But due to greed for his position, wealth and power, he continued to support this crazy belief of Pharaoh. Under Pharaoh's orders, he increased the level of torture on the children of Israel. Haman and his forces began spreading propaganda to socially humiliate Musa alayhi salam and tried to portray him as a magician and a madman. Their audacity exceeded such limits that they decided to kill Musa alayhi salam and his followers and started killing the sons of the children of Israel again. Allah, the Lord of the worlds, has declared Haman to be among the Khati'in, or great sinners, in the Holy Quran. In Surah Al-Qasas, verse 8, Allah says, "Indeed, Pharaoh, Haman and their armies were sinners." Haman thought his massive walls, strong forts and disciplined army would protect them. They forgot that the one against whom they had declared war is not an ordinary human, but the messenger sent by the Lord of the heavens and the earth, Allah the Almighty. This joint arrogance and injustice of Pharaoh and Haman invited Allah's wrath. While they were hatching the final plan to wipe out Musa alayhi salam and his nation, the decree of their destruction was already written in the heavens. Finally, that ultimate moment arrived when arrogance crossed its limits and reached the brink of destruction. By the command of Allah, Prophet Musa alayhi salam left Egypt in the darkness of the night with the children of Israel. When this news reached Pharaoh's palace, he went mad with rage. He caused a commotion with his huge army and ordered soldiers to gather from every corner of the country. At the forefront of that massive force was the arrogance of his power, Haman and his skilled soldiers. The Haman who used to build sky-touching minarets with stone and baked bricks was today marching to kill Allah's prophet and extinguish the light of truth. When Musa alayhi salam and his followers reached the shore of the Red Sea, in front of them was the turbulent sea, and behind them was the death trap of Pharaoh and Haman. The people of Bani Israel screamed in fear, but Musa alayhi salam said in a firm voice, "Never! Indeed, with me is my Lord. He will guide me." By Allah's miraculous command, the sea split in two, and the massive walls of water stood like mountains on two sides. Musa alayhi salam and his people safely crossed to the other side through that path. But even after seeing this clear miracle with their own eyes, the hearts of Pharaoh and Haman remained blind. In the arrogance of power, their horses onto that same path. Haman might have thought that with his engineering knowledge he could understand the flow of water, or that Pharaoh's might would protect them. But when they reached the middle of the sea by the command of Allah, those massive walls of water collapsed. The Haman who wanted to challenge God by building a sky-high tower for Pharaoh was today drowning in the depths of the sea along with his master Pharaoh. His architecture, his construction style, his power, nothing could save him. What Allah, the Lord of the world, said in Surah Al-Qasas, verse 6, was implemented letter by letter, And I showed Pharaoh, Haman, and their armies exactly what they were afraid of. When the waves of the sea were swallowing them, Pharaoh's arrogance was shattered into pieces. Allah preserved Pharaoh's body as a lesson for the next generation. But Haman and that massive tower he built were lost in the abyss of history. Today, thousands of years later, modern archaeology has dug up Haman's name from the soil. True, but it is not for his honor, rather for his disgrace and to prove the truth of the Quran. Many think that the punishment of Pharaoh and Haman perhaps ended by drowning in the waters of the Red Sea. But the Holy Quran informs us of terrible news. Death was not the end for them, but rather the beginning of an eternal torment. In this world, Haman built a tower by burning bricks in a fire kiln. Today, a fire more intense than that surrounds him in the world of the grave or Alam-e-Barzakh. Allah, the Lord of the world, says in Surah Al-Mu'min, or Ghafir, verse 46, regarding the current state of Pharaoh and his followers, among whom Haman is prominent. The fire, they are exposed to it morning and evening. And the day the hour appears, it will be said, make the people of Pharaoh enter the severest punishment. Just think, thousands of years have passed, yet Haman and Pharaoh face the punishment of fire every morning and evening in the world of the grave. The intellect or intelligence Haman used to try and cover up the truth is of no use to him today. On earth they were arrogant, but today they are humiliated. This tragic end of Haman teaches us that obeying the unjust orders of a ruler cannot be an excuse. If anyone thinks, I only followed orders, the fault is not mine, then Haman's history is a major warning for them. Because Allah Ta'ala punished the one who gave the order, just as he gave the same punishment to Haman, who carried out the order. Standing in front of this mirror of history, we also need to look at ourselves. The story of Haman is not just a story of a minister's fall or a building collapsing, but it is the ultimate example of two different mentalities. It is surprising to think how the destinations of two people living in the same palace, under the same roof, can be completely opposite. On one side was Haman, who built a sky-high tower with burnt clay for Pharaoh's satisfaction, the purpose of which was to challenge Allah the Almighty. And on the other side, in that same palace, was Pharaoh's wife, Bibi Asiya, who, making Pharaoh's immense wealth and Haman's created luxury her foot servants, made a request for a different architecture to Allah the Almighty. In Surah At-Tahrim, verse 11 of the Holy Quran, that historic prayer of Bibi Asiya is mentioned, where she said, My Lord, build for me near you a house in paradise and save me from Pharaoh and his deeds. What a wonderful contrast. Haman wanted to build a temporary tower in the world for Pharaoh, which has turned to dust today, and Bibi Asiya wanted a house in the closeness of Allah in paradise, which is eternal. Haman spent his intellect and engineering knowledge to please a tyrant, and Bibi Asiya bought the keys to paradise with her faith. Even today, there is no shortage of Haman's successors in our society. Those who want to establish falsehood as truth using their knowledge, intelligence, the power of the pen or technology. Those who strengthen the hand of the oppressor for a slight promotion, power, or greed for money are basically the Hamans of the modern age. They may think they are successful, but their success is weaker than a spider's web. Pharaoh's minister Haman has taught us that if intellect is without conscience, and if loyalty is towards the creation, forgetting the Creator, then it brings only destruction. On the field of Judgment Day, when people will be called with their leaders, Haman will also rise in a humiliated state with Pharaoh. So we have to decide, will we run after the glitter and power of the world like Haman, or will we remain firm on the truth like Bibi Asiya and build a house in paradise? May Allah protect us all from characters like Haman and grant us the ability to recognize the truth and stay on its side. Through this long discussion, we have tried to present a forgotten history to you in the light of the Quran. If the video has touched your heart even slightly, please share it and spread it. Even one share of yours for the propagation of the religion can be Sadaqah Jariyah. We request you to subscribe to our channel to get more such research-based videos. Stay well, stay healthy, and remain steadfast on the path of truth. Amin.